especially now. Thompson, both guys going to the basket that time though. Tristan Thompson's pass unable to get to White.
And Watkins!
Elliott picking up Jason Brickman.
Brickman. Crucial possession here. Brickman knocks it down.
The Formosa Dreamers and San Miguel Ala Pilipinas keep it rolling as they pick up Sunday afternoon and evening victories. We talk about both of those wins and a lot more on the latest episode of ABL Recap.
Subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified of the latest videos of the ABL. Follow all of our social media accounts and visit our website for more updates.
Once again, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us for this latest episode of ABL Recap. You've got Chuck Araneta, and joining me right now is Jut Sulit making his debut on ABL Recap. And Jut, we had 2 games on tap for ABL Sunday. First and foremost, it was the Formosa Dreamers picking up another victory. They are now rolling at the right time. They pick up an 89-80 win over the Saigon Heat. And I think one thing that we've talked about with the Formosa Dreamers, Jut, is that compared to other teams, this team has a lot of depth in the local scoring, and guys like Jet Chang were really able to help out and help them put away a very pesky and a very relentless Saigon Heat squad.
Absolutely, and Jet Chang now, the way that he's playing, he's really able to complement the imports that they have. Of course, we're also seeing imports who have proven their ability to make an impact in the ABL. I'm talking about Anthony Tucker and Ryan Watkins specifically, who played for Macau in previous seasons. But now, teaming up with Jaren Young, you think about those 3, and it's a really great combination of talent.
Oh yeah, well, you look at the numbers. Tucker top scoring with 30 points on 6 of 14 from beyond the arc. And then Jaren Young with another monster performance with 19 points, 19 rebounds, and 6 assists. And this is just the team right now is picked up their 3rd straight victory. It looks like they're really past all of the issues that have sort of hounded them. And you've got to give credit also to a guy like Ryan Watkins, who seems to have found this groove. We talked about this in previous episodes. Just could not find the right match when he was with Mono Vampire, but it seems different right now. He seems re-energized that he's got guys like Anthony Tucker, who was his old running mate last year with the Macau Black Bears. He seems like he's really gelling right now with this new team in not a lot of time.
If we take a look back at how Watkins and Tucker and they're also their running mate Mike McKinney worked together before when they were with Macau, Ryan did not have a lot of plays set up for him specifically because the main scorers would also always be McKinney and Tucker. But Watkins is such a hard worker. He doesn't mind not getting past, not receiving the ball via passes because he will get those offensive boards or defensive boards. He will just find a way to make an impact. But Chuck, I also want to bring in, Tien Lei, who scored all the bench points of Formosa in that win over Saigon, 10 points off the bench, and it's really good to see him get more comfortable because last season he barely played for the team.
Absolutely, a season high for Tien Lei, finished with 10 points and 5 boards. Now on the other side, before the episode started, we were talking about Saigon Heat, and we had a lot of hype for this team. Guys like Tamdin, Samdin, and even Chris Dirk are fresh from seeing them dominate in the SEA games. It just hasn't been working for these guys. And you look at our discussion with the Dreamers and their depth. For Saigon, they rely so heavily on their world imports because they don't really get a lot from the local performers.
And after, Justin Young and you mentioned Chris Turker, Tamdin coming in this season, you kind of got a feel that, okay, after the feeling out season, which was supposedly last year, you expect their games to rise to another level, but that just hasn't exactly happened. Earlier, the team scored 80 points and only 15 came from the locals. So that's really a chunk that the world imports had to take on. And hopefully for Saigon, I think really the secret, if they want to turn the season around and still make one last run for a better finish, it really will have to be the stepping up of the locals.
Absolutely. Well, you look at the numbers of the world imports of Saigon. Tyshawn Taylor, 22, almost had a triple-double, 22, 8 rebounds and 10 dimes. And Malcolm White, another solid performance, 16 points and 8 rebounds. So there was not a lot of drop-off. Even Sam Thompson at 27. But the drop-off from the world imports to the locals is really severe. Tandin was the high man with 6 points. You compare that to guys like Jet Chang who had 12.
Yeah.
And then Tian Lei, as you mentioned, with 10. It's really a stark difference. And that's the reason right now, Jut, that as we go to the halfway mark of the season of the Saigon Heat, they are now at the bottom of the barrel with 2 wins and 8 losses. And there's still time mathematically to make to make a playoff run. But something has to change, and there has to be a lot of guys that really step up starting now.
Yeah, and I think the real reason why we're bringing up the locals is because we know they can play better than what we're seeing right now, because we've seen it before. Remember, the first win of Saigon in Season 9 of the ABL was via a Justin Young game winner.
That's right.
And Chris Durker also, I thought he was one of the more dominant or most dominant players in the SEA Games, as you mentioned earlier. So I have a feeling that they'll get there. It could be a case of working on team chemistry as well.
Yeah, so that's the problem with the Heat changing imports drastically. Not a lot of time to really build chemistry. It's not the same for the Dreamers as they rise to an 8-6 card. And now are in 4th place, in that coveted 4th place in the ABL standings. So now we go to the second game, a thriller in Santa Rosa, Laguna, as San Miguel Alab Pilipinas had to take it to overtime before defeating the Singapore Slingers 86-77. And there was a chunk of time there, Jut, in the third, where Alab Pilipinas really looked dominant and ready to cruise to the win. But the Slingers finished the third with a 23-5 run.
Wow.
And that completely changed everything, and that set us up for a really thrilling conclusion. And it's rare to say this, but in a game where there wasn't a lot of scoring before we got to overtime, this was a really exciting ball game if you love your defense.
Absolutely, and they always say basketball is a game of runs. I think this specific contest is a very good example of it. Like you mentioned, a 23-5 run for the Slingers in the third quarter. Before that, Alab actually outscored them in that quarter, opening it up with a 7-1 run. But in the fourth quarter, you're right. Defense was really what we saw, and Alab Pilipinas limiting the Singapore Slingers to just 6 points. 6 points. Imagine a team with Anthony McLean, with Marcus Elliott, with Xavier Alexander. Those guys can explode for double digits in a single quarter. But as a team, Singapore held to 6.
Rock solid defensive effort there by Alab Pilipinas. And Brickman once again with another splendid performance, 16 points. 4 boards and 5 dimes, while Sam DeGuara, not a lot of offense, but he had 20 rebounds in this game, and the high man for scoring was Alab Pilipinas with 20. And it's just a treat to see how Jason Brickman can control a possession. Even though he's the smallest guy on the floor, he just really has the ball on a string, and more often than not makes the right decisions. And in overtime, he was really one of their closers.
Absolutely. Jason Brickman took over late in that game, and that's what allowed the Alab Pilipinas to escape with a win, because the focus will always be on other guys with the entire league, knowing that Brickman will always try to set his teammates up first. But then Brickman knew what to do, and that's what you have to praise about this guy. He's such a high basketball IQ.
Yeah, absolutely. And he looks like he's really developing a nice bond as well with DeGuara and with Nick King. And on the other side, a tough shooting night for Marcus Elliott. He was due for a bad game, probably because of all of the work he was doing prior to this one. He was a monster for the Slingers, but he finished only with 18 points on 7 of 26 shooting. So he was really letting them fly, while Alexander also had a tough night, 11 points, 4 of 11. But shout out to Leon Kwekjat. Monster performance, 19 points. He only missed once, and he was 7 of 8 from the field.
And he was 5 for 6 from downtown.
Wow.
So that's really a great game. And take a look at that. I mean, we just presented facts. The shooting of Marcus Elliott and Xavier Alexander. Marcus, like you said, 7 for 26. That Santa Rosa, that venue.
It hasn't been kind to him.
Nope. No, and I got to talk to him after the first time they played there this season, and he really said, this is really not the way I used to shoot the basketball, but those guys combining for a relatively low field goal percentage, and Singapore still taking Alab Pilipinas to overtime is a great sign. And we talked about locals already. Singapore, I think that their locals are really stepping up.
Oh yeah, because they have a lot of guys who have been through the wars for the Singapore Slingers. So that puts an end to the two-game winning run of the Slingers. They fall to 5-6 in sixth place in the standings, while Alab Pilipinas continues to try to scratch and claw to that top seed, and they are now 8-4, just a game behind Mono Vampire. And that's going to do it for those games. Let's take a look at the schedule on upcoming on Tuesday in the ABL. It is going to be Mono Vampire taking on the Saigon Heat. Let's see if the Heat will be able to bounce back against the number one seeded team in the ABL, while the Kuala Lumpur Dragons will try to snap their losing skid and try to slow down San Miguel Pilipinas and prevent them from getting their third straight win. That's going to do it for us here on Sunday. For Jatsulit, my name is Chuck Araneta, and we will see you on the next one.